Yeah, so for those that aren't making it, I am recording it, and I will send it out to everybody. I will be putting it on YouTube just as a available to everybody to kind of watch. I've got a couple of packs still remaining. I think I've got like two anyway. So if anybody buys it afterwards, they'll still be able to watch it. But I'll be editing out all the bump beforehand and trimming it and bits and pieces like that, just to kind of minimize all the embarrassment for the rest of us, except for Connors, obviously. Um, and there is as usual, a discount on things that we have tonight. I don't have that much stock because I sold a few bits of it already pre-Christmas. Now you've already given me kind of the stock levels that we have at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a promo code on the website, which will give you 10% off. If you're wanting any of the bottles from tonight, I need to then order them to get them in. So I've set it up on the website so that you can purchase it, and then I will order whatever it is that's purchased, as well as whatever else I need to either hit the minimum order or to get it on the shelf to top up anyway. So there's basically a bit of a short time scale of being able to get that discount off, because by at some point next week I'm going to have to put an order in to get the stock in, and then obviously I'll ship it out to you and everything like that. But you will get that 10% off. So the prices will go through as we go through each one. Have you got slides and screens and stuff to put up, Carnus?
Yes, on my new laptop, which doesn't work. However,
Uh,
on this one, I do not, which is
so
really annoying. I do
are
apologize.
you? I mean, I've got a couple of slides, and I've done like I don't know what else you had. If you want to either email it to me or just do it, depict it through the medium of dance or something. I don't know, whatever works for you. Because I've got
I've
some
always
screens.
wondered how I could.
Oh God, don't. I've got screens where it's just like the picture of the distillery and the bottle and the price and everything like that. So we might be able to muddle through on that, unless there was anything specific, like anything particularly technical or specific, or the offices or anything like that.
No, not really.
No,
We can muddle through with that. I think it's a case of just getting in amongst the liquid. That's what we're all about.
let's do it. Okay.
Um,
So,
if you could let me know what order we're tasting them in, that would be handy.
oh dear me. Right. So have you got them with you?
I have a couple lying here,
Right. Okay.
which
So
I'll take
we're
along
gonna
with you
do
as
the
and when.
the Dalyuen, the Mannockmore, the
Mhm.
Glenallachie, the Lowland, the Mortlach, and then the Kalila. That is the running order. But I will
That makes
also I'll put the
absolute
screens up
sense.
as well. It does. Good. Thank Christ for that. So, do you want to first, though, just give us a bit of background information about Glamvor, Rare Find, what that is, what they do, any of the other bits and pieces as well, just to give us a bit of context in terms of
Yeah.
who this is coming from.
Well, hello everyone. I recognize, I would say about 50% of the people on here. If you don't know me, my name's Connors. I have spent about the last decade or so going up and down the country with various whiskey brands. Occasionally bumping into Mr. Ben Bowers and hurling abuse towards each other because we can. Um, and Glenn Moore came around a little bit by accident, as far as I'm concerned. Around about the end of October, I got a phone call from a person who some of you may have heard of. He's called, oh, I forgot his name, David Ridley. Now, David is my former boss from a whiskey club that you may have heard of called the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. He moved on about a year ago and he started working for Glenmore. Long story short, they needed somebody to kind of um, produce some kind of retail structure in the north of England. They did try previously. However, what happened was is they spread themselves thin, so they decided to concentrate more on Scotland. And basically, since I spoke to him in October, I've been up and down the country with these bottles. My first port of call was actually the spirit specialist, Mr. Bowers, because he told me how to do it. And moving on from there, just kind of getting to know the business itself. It's been in existence for about 7 or 8 years now. They're also um, responsible for a blended malt that you might have heard of called Whiskey Raw. If you happen to be a Hibs fan, you'll know that they are sponsoring the back of the Hibernian shirt at the moment. And also three co-products from a single malt line called Edinburgh Whiskey. And they're the kind of entry level, core range, whatever you want to call them, products. What they brought me in for specifically was to talk about their brands under rare fine whiskies, which are basically the word rare is what we're underlining there. and the translation of the word rare in this case is whatever we deem to be rare. There's not really any kind of dictionary definition, but what we're doing is basically we're going flavor forward. Yes, we've got lovely packaging. Yes, you've got a nice big box and a case if you want it. But we're very much flavor forward. And they've set down real intentions with regards to how long they want to be around for. That was a big thing for me. They've got a warehouse up in Glenrothes that's currently housing around about 5,000 casks. And we're looking to bring out around about sort of 5 to 10 whiskies every 3 to 4 months. So you'll be hearing a lot more from us. So the first one, I believe, Mr. Bowers, you mentioned was the Dial Ewan.
Yes, so that is what the bottle itself looks like. So this is a 15-year-old, which is a white wine finish at 55.3%. That is where the distillery is in the Speyside region. And you can also see it's normally 79.99, but with your 10% off, it would be 71.99. And have you got any info about the distillery? Because I've got some nuggets. Has he in fact frozen? Oh no, you're still there.
There you are.
So yeah, built 1851 at the end of the 19th century. It was the biggest distillery in Speyside. You don't often find Dalian as a single malt. It's mainly used for Diageo blends. So I've only ever seen it previously as the flora and fauna bottling, and that's it. I think that's pretty much the only time I've come across this.
Interesting fact, Ben.
Cool.
Dal Ewan is one of the few Diageo distilleries never to be featured in their special releases.
Ah.
Um, so you get in, as you say, the flora and fauna quite a lot. But again, it's one of those we refer to them as blending malts, the kind of backbone of the whiskey industry. Now, on paper, I should hate this, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, it's been in a wine cask, and if you've been to a tasting with me before, you'll have heard me say that wine casks aren't really my thing. What I will say is that one of three things is happening. Either we're learning how to use them better, my palate's changing, or both. Because I actually quite like this one. It's not too kind of acidic on the palate, and it doesn't overwhelm the kind of natural fruitiness of the actual dram itself. But I hate kind of projecting tasting notes onto people. Um, I'm assuming you've all kind of picked it up and tried it there.
Looks like it. I can see lots
Yeah.
of people kind of chewing and all sorts of stuff.
Mm,
I'm kind of the same as you in terms of particularly, I like red wine finishes,
mm.
but white wine, I don't know what it is. It's just every time I come across it, it's never really worked. And I think it probably stems from, remember the Glen Moray Chardonnay cask from
Yeah,
like years ago? And it was like somebody had just poured whiskey in a glass of white wine and it was just dreadful. And
yeah,
it's almost like that's colored my perception of it.
yeah.
But this, I love the sweetness of this. Do you know what wine cask it is?
No, they didn't give me that information, sadly.
Swines.
Um, One of the things I'm coming to kind of get with at the moment is that kind of lack of detail that maybe we should go into. So things
Mm.
like the number of bottles in the outturn and things like that, which I'm looking to address with them and hopefully get updated. But I don't need to explain it to you guys, but the whole provenance thing is huge at the moment. You've got to have everything literally up to when the last time the warehouseman, ran out of deodorant on the bottle or whatever it is, you want to put on there. So I'm trying to get them to incorporate it. So keep an eye out for that in the future. We'll certainly be working on that. But any opinions on that as a starting dram?
Any thoughts as to what that wine cask could be? Because I kind of err towards a slightly sweeter white wine. Maybe not
Uh,
dessert, but there's definitely a.
yeah, yeah. Um, I did mention when I was tasting this with your very good friend, Mr. Jeff Boss, I thought maybe on the way to Sauternes or something like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, but I'll be completely honest with you, I have little knowledge of wine altogether. I have kept wine separate from my nerd cortex or whatever you want. I just want to enjoy it. I don't want to analyze it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you know, Daluin, well, like most of the whiskies we're tasting tonight, it tends to be kind of relatively dependable because it has to be because most of it goes into Johnny Walker, as we know. It's just what we do with it, and the guy who actually signs off on all of Glenmore's whiskies is a guy called Greg Urquhart, and he's learned from the bottom up. He literally came in as a warehouseman 9 or 10 years, sorry, 8 or 9 years ago, and has literally learned his craft from the bottom up. And sat talking to him because, certainly the two Daves who are here and Jane and Steve will tell you, I have to have some kind of guarantee that they're not going to give me crap. Hence, I work with brands that I feel that I can count upon. And talking to this guy, he really knows the idea when it comes to balancing whiskies. So it's not just a lump of uninteresting rubbish. I'm completely fine if you don't like it. That's not a problem at all. However, as long as you're engaged and interested to find out what it is and what the next one's going to be, then I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pick on someone because I'm nasty. Richard.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Richard. How did you
Hello.
find the Daluin?
When I first smelt it, it reminded me of something. I couldn't quite name it, and I went off camera and had a look at what I had. Remember that black cow that you sold me, Ben, about 2 years ago? There was a Christmas
Yes.
smell, and it was the raisins, raisin sultanas,
Oh, okay.
maybe that I could
Mm-hmm.
smell in that. But on tasting it, I kind of lost the smell on the taste.
Yeah.
Okay,
Added water to it, it took a lot of the sharpness off.
right. Mhm.
So
Uh,
yes, it was fine, but not for me.
okay, yeah. When you mention water as well, everything we do is at cask strength. And you'll know that cask strength doesn't necessarily guarantee anything other than it's at the strength it was when it came out of the cask because of evaporation and so on and so forth. That could be as low as 40%. It could be 60% plus. It doesn't really guarantee you anything. But with regards to adding water to whiskey, there isn't really any rule from a scientific point of view. There are things in all different whiskies that affect flavor. Some of them will be soluble in water and some of them won't. So if you taste it and you think something's out of balance or you don't like it or whatever, then a couple of drops of water will kind of underline those soluble things that affect flavor. Whether or not those soluble components are the ones that you like is a completely different question altogether. I always
Well, then
say,
it really dumbed it down. Adding the water really dumbed it down. I don't know. I think David added water to his. Does he add in water to yours, David? Yeah. You're on mute, David.
oh,
No, he's fine.
He's on mute and he's pressed the wrong button and he's hung up. we,
I didn't see
we've
David
knocked him
come in
off.
actually. Oh, he did.
Is he still there? What button is he pressed? He's pressed pause.
He's paused his life. Nice.
It's
Yeah.
it is definitely on that lighter side, and it's one of those that I don't think it needs a lot of water, if any. I really like it at cask strength. I love the sweetness to it. And I can imagine adding water to it, as you say, Richard, dumbing it down, just knocking off because it's quite delicate already. Um, I can imagine it's not going to take a lot of water just to flatten everything because it's quite soft on its own.
We added a little bit of water, just a couple of drops, and I agree with Richard that it took it down, but I wouldn't have added any more.
Yeah,
I think it would have lost it totally.
I agree.
Yeah. And that's not really a skill or there is no black and white answer to it. It's a case of just kind of getting used to what you're drinking and deciding if you like it or not. For the purposes of exploration, like tonight, these are the perfect sort of conditions to have a play around and find out things that you maybe wouldn't have found out otherwise. But if in this case, as Richard said, you want to take some of the sharpness off it, then great, go for it. If not, I think when I tried it, I probably would have left it as it was. But again, each to their own. Each to their own.
And we've got, as I normally say, about halfway through rather than on the first one. These are cask strength, so there's lids on them if you want to save a bit and maybe come back to it later on. If some of you have got, say, a flight at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's quite handy to be there. We go, very sensible. Then six cask strength whiskies before a 4 o'clock flight is probably not a good idea. So, but maybe come back to it. It might be that after a couple, maybe after the Glenallachie or something like that, you actually try a little bit again and go, oh, well, blimey, this is actually working really well.
And that's another old adage. Yeah, in our game, Ben, the first dram of the evening always has the hardest job.
Always, mate. Always, every single time. And that's why when I remember, I say to people, if you can save a bit and maybe come back to it later on, because once you've kind of got into the swing of things and you've got tasting a few bits and pieces and textures and things like that, you kind of go back to the first and the second one and go, oh, blimey, actually, I didn't think I liked it, but this is really good because you've kind of you've kind of woken up your taste buds and everything like that. So, shall we go on to the next one then? Which is...
Someone's going to have to defrost David, I think.
I think so, yeah. I know it was cold outside, but blimey, I didn't realise it was that cold. So that's what Dalgewin Distillery looks like. Not the most sort of traditional, but not the most sort of industrial like some of them are. So this is Malachmore. So this is a 14-year-old, which is from a refill bourbon hogshead at 51.5%. This is normally 114.99, so it's down at 103.49. Again, a little bit further up, so we're going a little bit closer up to Elgin. That is what the distillery looks like. So it was built by Distillers Company Limited in 1971 for blending. You've got a sister distillery, so you'll see on the sign it's Glenlossie and Manachmore. Manachmore, again, lots of ease for blending. You do find a bit more single malt bottlings out there, but again, they tend to be more independent bottlers. Manachmore's probably best known for Lochdu, aka the black whiskey. It was Manachmore that was in it, and then basically half a ton of caramel colouring and all sorts of stuff thrown into to make it as dark as possible. That's the distillery itself, and Manachmore's, yes, that's Glenlossie, but it's all very similar. This is pretty much just a workhorse of a distillery. But I've got to say, Manachmore, when I've come across them, I've been very, very impressed with them regularly. I had hopes for this and I tried it, and that was why I put it on, because I really like this one.
I would concur with you there, Ben. This was the dram that convinced me I could work for these people. I'm all for, experimenting with different cask types and finishes and all that kind of new wave of interesting things in, mezcal casks or whatever. However, sometimes just give it a good cask, stick some decent spirit in it there, and just keep an eye on it. You'll know when it's ready, and you'll get some great whiskey out of it. It's got that softness with just like a touch of fruit in it, and kind of more roasty, chocolatey notes at the end as well. I just love this ram, frankly. I bought one of these.
I get like salted toffee in it as well. There's like
Yeah.
a lovely kind of fruity, toffee, caramelly, all sorts of stuff going on there.
Yeah, and again, this is just it's a distillery that is one of my go-to from the kind of unknown blenders, blending malts. Up until about maybe 5-10 years ago, Longmorn was at the top of that list, but Longmorn got popular. But distilleries like Manickmore and Glenbergie and Glentorgas, all of these really stand up very well as single malts. And when you get it in a single cask version like this, and you just notice the slight kind of deviation, if you like, from some of the stuff that you get maybe in Flora and Fauna and special releases and stuff. It's a really good malt to get your head into and sort of explore. And I think it's superb personally. And I don't say that often, do I, David?
Never been said before. I agree. I think this is a great whiskey. Very good. Just put a little bit of water with it. It just helped take the edge off. I mean, it's not that strong, 51.5, but I very enjoyed it very much. How much do they make a year of? What's the distillery output per year? Is it relatively small?
I would imagine it's in the millions, maybe only just.
Okay.
I'll check it out for you. I'll have a proper look.
The price you showed Ben before, that wasn't the price for this one, was it? This one's
It was.
$79 according to your website.
Is it? Have I put the wrong one on the one? No, hang on. Let me do.
Which sounds more like it for the age.
Yeah, hang on 2 seconds. Yeah, you're right. It is $79.99.
Now that makes sense.
That changes things, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right, now let's see what I've put the wrong price on somewhere. So
Yeah, whatever's 100 odd quid is now 79 quid. I'll have 2 of them.
Yeah.
That was special discount.
right, so now I need to go through the rest of them and see which. Right, so that's
Is the Dalyun still at 79?
the Dalyun is still at yes, the Dalyun is still that same price. So oh, there we go. I've got I think it's my spreadsheet. That's why.
So Kalila, was 115.
Yeah. Which I've got at the right price, and then the Glenallachie's 104. So yeah. Right. Fortunately, we caught it early on, so I can change the rest of them, and nobody's going to be any the wiser when we get to the next ones. Yeah, that has gone completely wrong. Why has that happened?
Such is life, Ben. We're having a little bit of a bad day on the old digital.
It's one of them, isn't it? It's yeah, no, but I can't even blame the digital for that, because that is totally on me.
Well, it's just something else I can take the mick out of before next time.
There is that. Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't need these.
The last and only time I visited Spirit Specialist, I actually fixed the power supply as well.
Yeah, for all of 2 minutes.
There we go. So the Manickmore is a little bit more of a hit than the Dalyun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely coming across that way, isn't it?
Well, it's like you say, it's not messed about with. It's just a good, honest malt around the 80 quid a bottle mark. Then for that strength and quality, then you're in the right ballpark.
It's got a bit of character.
Yeah, stands out a little bit. It's an honest malt, but it's not. You couldn't say it tastes like X, Y, and Z very easily. It's very nice and it tastes like itself, and that's what you're looking for. If you like it.
I think the word that you came out with there, Brian, was Good Honest Malt.
Mhm.
That's definitely a file name that I'm going to use.
There we are.
I was going to say that's two words that have never been associated with you, Lee.
Malt. Good.
Right. So, I've just realised this new laptop now won't do automatic tab back. Right. So let's that one. There we go. Right. So if I do that, and I do that, and I do that, there we go. That's correct.
Oh,
Hey,
I like it.
hey.
See, that's what it said the first time. It's what you get when you're drinking cask-strength whiskies. Is people see different things. Right. So let's move on to the. Oh, hang on. Let me just check the prices. Correct. For the. Oh God, what am I doing? There we go.
Is this
right.
your first?
So
Is this your first Zoom tasting of the year by any chance?
yes, funnily enough, yeah. Right. So the Glenallachie 14-year-old in a refill sherry butt at 62.3%. So this is 104.99 down to 94.99. Another space cider. This is the distillery, built in 1969 by Scottish and Newcastle's their distilling subsidiary, McKinley's. In 1989, it became part of Pernod Ricard, and a lot of it was used for blending. Again, very rarely seen as a single malt during that time. And then a conglomerate took it on in 2017, which included Billy Walker, who had previously revitalised Benriach and Glendronach. And when he took those over, Benriach had a capital R in it. Glendronach was with a capital D for Dronach. So Glenallachie now has the capital A in the official bottlings. And those official bottlings are very highly regarded, award winners left, right, and centre, known for being big, fruity sherry bombs all the way through. And whenever I come across new independent bottlers, I'm always a little bit reluctant when it comes to there's plenty of official bottlings out there and they're already really good. So it's going to have to do something special. I like the independent bottlers that are doing the distilleries that you don't often see, like Dalhousie, like Mannockmore. So whenever there's one in a portfolio that's like, they're quite a big brand already, I'm always a little bit reticent to maybe give it a go. I've got my hopes up, and to be fair, I do love Glenallachie's. And as soon as I tried this, it was like, yeah, I kind of need to get this in because it is really, really good.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know exactly what you're talking about there, Ben. What surprised me when I started doing some research like you've been doing, it was only 5 years ago that Billy Walker took over Glenallachie. It feels like he's just been there forever.
Yeah.
The absolute sort of rebirth of Glenallachie as a brand has just been all-encompassing, hasn't it? He's done a great job, and he's also famed for having access to really good casks. And we're seeing less and less of it in the sort of indie bottling sphere, if you like. But, as you say, the ones that are sort of there are usually sort of picked up quite quickly. I remember tasting this with you when I was down there, and there was one thing that you said that resonated with me was the hazelnut brittle note that you got from it, like a really nutty, sweet toffee caramel thing going on. And I was like, yep, you've got that there, mate. Well done. Your palate's working. But yeah, this one, a 15-year-old, I'm sure there are kind of similar age and, cask types available directly from Glenallachie. So you have to put something out there that you think is going to compete. And frankly, I think this does. Especially at that price, it's probably about 10, 15 quid cheaper than some of the official releases that have came out there. And I think it stands up shoulder to shoulder with them, frankly. I like that one a lot. Any opinions, folks?
Yeah, any thoughts in the room?
Really like this one. Really. It's got the sort of praline, nutty, chocolatey praline sort of thing on the edge of it. And then it's got this, the sort of, I don't know, sherry furniture sort of what you expect from a sherry taste.
Mhm.
Really nice.
Cool.
Prefer it without water.
I tried it both ways, and yeah, I think with a couple of drops of water, it sort of takes a tiny edge off, but it doesn't take much of the flavour away. And you can drink it without. So
yeah, and considering it's over 61.2 or something.
Yeah, 62.3, I think.
62.3, yeah, that's a bit of a beast, that. And it drink, which for me is something I love about cask strength whiskies when they're that strong and they've got that much flavour going for them that it doesn't feel hot at all. That's one of the things I used to love about Abelard Abunat was the fact it was like in the 60s, and yet it didn't. It wasn't that it didn't need water. It's just water wasn't necessarily of a benefit. You could drink it straight, and it would just have so much going for it. And that's the same. It's an absolute pelter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A teeny tiny bit of water in ours, and I really like it. Just the smell of it reminds me of there's a pudding that my mum makes that is dried fruit soaked in brandy and with chocolate and biscuits and yeah, it smells like that. It's amazing.
Well,
that sounds absolutely amazing. There, that sounds it's got that. It's got that sort of like soaking Christmas pudding, Christmas cake type vibe going on as well. But yeah, the chocolate and the biscuit and everything. Was it just like a big kind of like mush in a bowl, and you just kind of?
Well, you need to ask my mum. It's like in a bowl, looked like a Christmas pudding, but with chocolate.
So good.
I'll send you the recipe.
As I say, if you stack that against something like Glendronach Parliament 21-year-old, for the money you're asking for that, it's a much, it's fantastic taste, and it's a much better value for money proposition if you want something that's going to smack you with a sherry bottle.
Yeah, like Glendronach 18's 150 at the moment, and 21's pushing 200, if not more. And that is, I'd rather have two of them. Absolutely,
yeah, definitely.
It's one of those I could nose it all day. I love that nose. It's just amazing. It's so good.
Mm. Oh, something that I failed to do in my little journey here with Rare Find is I deliberately didn't do any research with regards to pricing of other products. So when people come across and tell me that Glendronach Parliament is a comparable dram but half the price, it's like, yeah, I know.
I mean, it's not the same, but it's the same category. The same person who likes that and I like this.
Yeah. That's great to hear.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and just a little anecdote here. Although we're very serious about whiskey, we do have kind of some characters in in the ranks. Greg, who's in charge of putting all these things together, we do have like gin brands and vodka brands. You might have heard of Glasgow Gin and Leith Gin, and these. The one that came out that was very successful was Cascade Gin, which was under the Leith label. And Greg was sat with 3 sherry casks one day. 2 had whiskey and 1 had gin in it, and he had to vat the 2 whiskey ones and send it away for a small batch, but he accidentally vatted the wrong 2 casks. So we've got this new innovative product called Ginski, which wasn't a botch. No, we were deliberately trying to move forward with new, interesting flavor things. So we're quite aware of the fact that we're human and we're going to get some of these things wrong. But the underlying thing that I'm getting from the whole brand is they're looking at the long term as opposed to maybe making a quick buck, like some people might be doing currently in the.
They got is it Wester rum as well?
Correct. Yep.
Yes. So Wester rum, I've got all of them because they bought it and sort of relaunched it because I think the original guys ran out of money. But their chocolate and coffee rum are absolutely amazing. Coffee rum is unlike anything else I've ever had previously. It's absolutely mental. So yeah, they've got a really good portfolio, which I might have to, if I'm ordering, I might have to get some more of that in as well. So let's go on to the next one, which is that one. That one. So this is the Lowland 10-year-old. Now, unfortunately, there's none of this left. And this is a refill sherry hogshead at 63.9%. Now, at the time, you didn't tell me what distillery it was. I don't know if you know what distillery it is now. So the nearest I can come on in terms of a map is that's the whole of the Lowland region. So this is the Scotch Whisky Association's latest map of all the distilleries. And there are, according to them, 19 Lowland malt whisky distilleries operational at the moment. Now we could make it a quiz, and you could try and name them all, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to bother doing that. But yeah, there's a few in there like Bladnoch, Auchentoshan, Lockley, Lindors, those sorts of things. But yeah, do you know? Have you been told what distillery this is, or is this a big secret?
As I'm sure you're all aware, there are certain things that I'm allowed to say and certain things that I'm not allowed to say. I was having a nice conversation with the sated Mr. Mark Watt the other week. If you really wanted to annoy all of the independent bottlers, what you could do is open a distillery and call it an unnamed or a secret. So every time they come out with a bottle, they're not allowed to put an unnamed or a secret on the bottle. Officially, I'm not allowed to tell you, but I will say that the distillery this is from, an American once told me that it was pronounced Ashantishan.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if he'll watch this, but do you know Soren Krebs? OCD Whiskey on X, Twitter. So the first time I met him was actually a couple of years before I met him properly. I was working at the whiskey shop in York, and then I did a dram a day after I'd left, and I got to know him through social media. And I did one of my dram a day videos was, I think it was this particular distillery, and I talked about how a guy came into the shop once and asked me for a bottle of Auchentoshan. And it took me 5 minutes to figure out what distillery he was talking about. And then when I met Soren for like the first or second time after doing that video, he turned around and he said, I actually think that was me. So he was the one that legendarily, which will stick with me to this day, called this particular distillery Auchentoshan. But yeah, I did wonder if it was going to be something like that, and it's got sort of similar flavor profiles. Kind of soft and sweet and very easy drinking. Beast at 63.9 as well, but again,
easy drinking.
It doesn't need a lot of water, if any. It still drinks really well neat, I think.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm well aware of the fact that you should never go in with any sort of biases in your head. But let's face it, every time we see the name of a distillery or a brand on a bottle, you think this should deliver this, and this. And with this particular distillery, when it's been in sherry, I always wonder if it's going to make that cinnamon note that I usually find in it a little bit too much. In this case, I don't think it has. Again, like you say, it's rounded as opposed to sort of spiked with spice, if that makes sense.
Getting like a dark cherry note coming through as well, but that spiciness comes through, that kind of cinnamon, nutmeg.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've got they're Egbert's cocktail cherries, and they're cherry like Marusca cherries, but they put old-fashioned bitters in the syrup with them. Mm-hmm. So you get dark cherry, but you also get that spiciness, and there's similarities to this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that as well. I mean, with me only being in the company for about 3 months now, I've not really had a chance to delve into some of the sort of previous releases and kind of get an idea of kind of what maturation sort of what's the word, maturation regime that they kind of want to imply. But certainly, what I've noticed is whatever they do, it always tends to be unaggressive, not unaggressive, but drinkable. You know, that's the word I put at the end of it. So, you know, I've kind of got enough trust with them now to say, well, yeah, do what you're doing. You're doing fine. As soon as something a little bit suspect comes around, I'll let you know. And we'll take it from there. But yeah, they've done a good job on this. A distillery that I'm not a huge fan of, but I will say this: the greatest thing that I've ever seen on a distillery tour happened in this distillery. At the moment we were in the mash house, someone in the tour asked the guide what the water source was, and to her eternal credit, the lady who was doing the tour said, "You're in Glasgow, pal. The tap's over there. You're allowed. You're one of us."
Ben, I was just wondering if this one isn't available, and just picking something at random. I noticed you've got an Auchentoshan 18 on offer.
Yep.
Would this have any similarities?
This has got a lot more to it than the Auchentoshan 18. The Auchentoshan 18 is very, very drinkable, but I think you'd probably find it lacking compared to this, just because of the complexity, because it's a bit younger, the ABV, everything else that's going on with it. I think it might come across as a bit, just sort of not up to the standard of this, to be honest.
I have to say, I agree with Connor. I've never really been a huge fan of it as a distillery. I do have a major problem with this one in that there isn't any left. So yes, it's frightening, because if you drank that and saw the name of the distillery on the label, and I'm with you, you'd go and spend a lot of money on another bottle from them. You wouldn't be guaranteed to enjoy it anywhere near as much.
Yeah. I don't mind them. You know, I like when it first came out, the 3-wood, I used to absolutely love. I think it's gone downhill over years, but it is one of those that it's okay. I'm not going to turn it down, but I probably wouldn't seek it out. But this definitely kind of shows what it could do. It's a really good representation of it. But yeah, like you say, you might, if this was your first occurrence of it, you might get the wrong impression of what that distillery, the rest of what it's like, official bottling wise. So let's go for something a bit different. Now, this was one where after you turned up, you then sent me an email, went, "These are new ones coming out." And as soon as I saw this, I was like, gotta give this a go. I did kind of take it on spec, but then when I tried it to decant and everything like that, went, "Oh yes, this is as good as I hoped it would be." So this is So this is a Mortlach 10-year-old, but it's a Shiraz finish. So from recollection, I think it was 3 years in, was it Australian Shiraz casks?
Yeah, that's great.
59.3%, 89.99 a bottle, so down to 80.99. This is what the distillery looks like. And they are, so this is a very old distillery, granted license in 1823. And this is one that's kind of famous in the industry for having a complicated distillation process. That means that rather than it being triple distilled, people have done the calculations on it, it's distilled 2.81 times. And that gives you a spirit that ends up being quite full, but it's known, quite popularly known as being quite meaty, which sounds weird until you kind of try it. So by all means, look at that and make sense of it, because I haven't got a bloody clue what's going on there. But essentially, it's low wines the tails go into the wee witchy, which is a smaller spirit still. So there is part of one of the runs that kind of goes back in, and that's how you get more of it, like this 0.81 distillation. because you're not just throwing the tails away, you are technically redistilling and bringing stuff back in, and it's something's going on there which gives it this quite unique, quite unusual flavor profile, which is deep and rich and weirdly meaty, and it's difficult to describe without actually trying it. And then we're throwing Shiraz, big, bold, beefy red wine itself, into the mix as well. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, we've got to have this. I hope this is really good. And yeah, I think it's brilliant. But I can imagine there's going to be some people that this just doesn't work for.
Well, I'm pleased you said that, Ben, because this is the only one of the flight tonight I've not actually tried myself. It came out at the end of last year, and I've literally not.
So have you not had this yet?
Been sent the sample yet? I've not been at the warehouse.
Are you going to get one? Because if not, I'll send you a bit of this.
I'm up at the warehouse next week. I'll try. But the sort of the joke within the production guys about Mortlach is there are two types of people in the world: people who don't understand the distillation process at Mortlach and liars. Because it's all that complicated. They're recycling heads and tails all over the place.
It's just I don't know.
Twice and 3 times, but not quite there. But I mean, you know, and this distillery's been around for a long time, and you know there is science to this stuff, and it just goes to prove not all of it's kind of, you know, just happy old men, you know, doing what they've done for many years and produce this whiskey almost by accident, just because it is where it is, and you know, it's quite a scientific heavy sort of process that they go through there. And there's not a lot of distilleries that can kind of keep up with it for that kind of full-bodied meatiness. I mean, the first one I think of is Craig Alleghy. And we saw on the diagram there that the worm tub condensers, basically, they strip less out of the spirit, so it leaves some of the kind of heavier compounds in there. It gives that sort of meaty, full, oily flavor. And pairing it with Shiraz, I remember being at the Diageo Special Releases launch, I want to say 2017 or 18, and I said to them, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of wine casks. Out of all of the single malts in Scotland, you've got to assume the one that's going to stand up to wine casks has got to be Mortlach. Is there anything coming through? And I've still seen nothing from it. So this is high on my list to go and try next week when I'm up there. But what do you guys think?
Don't water it.
Colour.
No, don't water it. Put water in it.
Don't water it.
I must admit, I'm not a great fan. That the last 3 I thought were amazing. This one, for me, doesn't work with the last 3. That they might have spoiled the palate a little bit.
Okay.
It's a very individual. Out of the whole run, this is the one that sort of stands out without obviously Kalila being Kalila. But compared to the other 4, you know, the other 4 are there's fruitiness going on. There's sort of caramel notes in the last 3, and this is a bit of a sort of swerve off, and we've got the sort of red wine tannins are coming through. You've got that big character of the whiskey. It's I can absolutely appreciate it's not going to work for everybody. But what it does show is that they're doing something different. You know, it's not just all here's big, you know, nice fruity whiskies and everything like that. This is the one that's sort of almost taking a bit more of a risk, and I think is really interesting. But this you need to be in the right frame of mind to be drinking this, definitely, as well.
I could say if you'd been drinking red wine with a meal and you had this afterwards, it would work really well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Or even if it was like with the meal, you know, if you had this, or if you had this as a sort of you know, postprandial after a steak dinner or something like that, you know, pairing with a steak in a good restaurant or something like that would work really well.
Yeah.
I really like this one. I mean, not as much as the Lowland and the Glenallachie sherried ones, but I'm a big fan of a Shiraz, and I can really taste it in this. And it reminded me, Ben, that I need to get some more of that Shiraz gin from you, because I love that.
Which reminds me, I need to order some in then.
So
right, okay. Noted.
You might need quite a few bottles if Lindsay's ordering.
Right, okay.
I have to say that if it sits long enough, because I've got the 4 a.m. slot, which I'm having to be aware of for tomorrow as well. Not that I'm on a flight, but I've got too much on tomorrow. If what's in the glass lasts long enough, it'd be interesting to see how it opened up after it's been open for a while. Because I've just literally unwrapped it and poured it, and it's quite in your face. But I think with a bit of breath, I think it actually could really round up. I like it a lot, I must admit.
Yeah, I poured mine at 6:30. I thought this was starting earlier than 8 o'clock. Yeah, this is opened up beautifully. It's lovely.
Wow.
It's left me with quite a dry palate, especially at the back of the throat.
Yeah.
That's the wine. That's the tannins, though, isn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
This means you want another one.
There's no
I'll open a bottle of red.
Yeah. But it's really interesting how this one's kind of split people, as opposed to people saying, yeah, I get that on that, and I like this about it, I like that about it, and other people are agreeing or disagreeing. There was some kind of agreement down the middle of that. With this, it's like, nope, don't like it. Yes, do like it.
Yeah. And I kind of knew it was going to go that way as soon as I tried it. But it was one that was, I wanted to put it on, as I thought it was a bit unusual being Shiraz, because you don't really get that many Shiraz finishes. And Malt like such an unusual one, but also just to kind of go in a slightly different direction in terms of flavor profile and things like that, rather than just go straight into a smoky, which we will do now. Yes, indeed. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. So, Kalila. So Kalila, 15-year-old, and it's got those two words that will get me every single time. Pedro Jimenez. Soon as you say those words or have the letters PX, I'm probably going to go for it. So it's a refill Pedro Jimenez hogshead at 55.4. I realised I put the wrong picture on. That's the Mortlach 10. The Kalila does come in the wooden box at 114 down to 103.49. So right on that coast of Islay, 3 miles away from Budhaven, built in 1846. Kalila means the sound of Islay, that little stretch of water that's overlooking Jura. Big part of Johnny Walker Black Label. He didn't actually get a single malt released until 2002, but there are plenty of single malts available, as well as a lot of independent bottlings of either Kalila or unnamed Islas. Will probably be Kalila as well, because it's an absolute workhorse. 2015, it was one of the top 10 distilleries in the whole of Scotland in terms of output. And they don't mature on the island. It's all on the mainland. So, as most of you will know, because you've done tastings with me, Kalila is one of my favourite distilleries. The worst Kalila I've ever had was very good. And yeah, this ticks so many boxes for me. It's, I'll just shut up and drink it. That's you tell me what you think.
I've often said you can't call yourself an independent bottler if you put out bad Kalila. It's like you just can't. If you're putting out bad Kalila, you may as well, do something else. This, I do prefer Kalila personally. Is just out of refill hogsheads, but this PX sherry works for me.
It does.
I don't really get along with PX too much, but in this case, they balanced it out nicely. I always think in my head, although all Kalila is usually good, there tends to be sometimes a more kind of lemony, fruity style of spirit, and sometimes an ashier style of spirit that comes out of Kalila. I think what this has done is just kind of married those two characteristics together with a PX and kind of made it work beautifully. And like you say, a workhorse distillery. Not a lot of people realize that the mash bill of Kalila is exactly the same as the mash bill at Lagavulin. It's literally the distillation process that separates the two. Obviously, you get a lot more Kalila. And occasionally they do unpeated runs, but you don't see a lot of that these days. But it's a sort of stalwart on the independent bottler side of things. You see a lot of Kalita out there, and it's usually brilliant, frankly. Again, what do we think there, guys?
I think this one's stunning. Really stunning. Excellent.
And I'll know that I'm not a smoky whiskey person, but if I was going to drink smoky whiskey, that would be the one. Because of the PX, it just makes it. It brings the smokiness to a place where I'm enjoying it, which is, normally I'd say, it's like licking a hot road on a summer's day, which I don't enjoy. But that I'd quite happily do so.
It's safe to say that Claire is not a fan. But is that a peated whiskey in general? I seem to remember.
It is.
Yeah. I mean,
Sherry, for you, Claire.
if the taste lived up to the smell, that'd be great. Because it smells lovely. But the antiseptic taste is horrible.
Okay, yeah. I understand that.
I'm not a peat fan either, I must admit, but I do like this.
Yeah, it's a different peat in it, and it's just done something to it to make it. It enhances the sherry.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it just gives me twice as much.
Every cloud, Richard, every cloud.
This one's going to have to be saved for Mr. Patterson, Ben, because I dare say he'll be ordering a bottle because his addiction to smoky whiskey.
Oh yes, yeah, there is. Yeah, that is a good point. Actually, I might have to get a couple more of those in when I put the order in. I think.
Well, I'm seeing it, so I'll make sure he has it.
Yeah.
A couple of drops of water for me lifted it quite a lot.
Never tried it before. Didn't try it.
I think this has worked really well for being a refill rather than a first fill. It's not overwhelmed the character. It's added to it rather than blocking it. I think it's worked really well. This.
Yeah, and that's another point about maturation. We often think of maturation in terms of kind of how much flavor can we impart in one go. But it's not always about that. It can be sometimes, how much flavor can we sort of take out and balance, through
we've added some water in now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a bad idea, Ian.
It was intriguing for me. I put some water in it and it took away the sherry. Now I can just taste the peat, so it's not made any better.
Richard doesn't like it now, but I do.
Oh dear.
Lovely days. So, who's not had a little word? Phil McGee and David W. How are you getting on?
They're on, yeah. The Mortlax, that's something special. There's a distillery over here in Northern Ireland, Ecklandville. Some of the staff down there, Jarlath, they talk about their whiskies kind of having that machine shop floor kind of vibe, diesel and oil, and that's in a good way, not a bad way, in a good way. That's and again, those boys are into their sherry bombs and their Glendronach. That's just what that's like. That's fantastic.
Brilliant. It's good to hear. And yourself, David W.
I've never got anything to say about anything, so.
I'm just laughing because you're making him say something, Connors.
I know.
Which is weird because when you get to him in person, he never shuts up.
What usually happens is he says nothing for the entire tasting, and then at the end we sit and talk for 2 hours. That's how it works. How it is. So, like I said, the only thing we don't have left in stock is the Lowland. We've got minimum 3 cases of everything left. So once Mr. Bowers gets around to it, I'm sure we'll be able to.
Yeah. So that is, as a reminder, that is the prices with the 10% off. So if you go onto the website and put a code in of Rare Find at checkout, that will give you your 10% off. So
go with that man.
And then, Well, there's. I mean, that also that reminds me, I needed to have changed that page. So let's go back to that one. In fact, let's stop the share. Just fill in for me for a minute, Connor. While I put the right prices on.
Well, my glamorous assistant does the job.
Damn
it. The general kind of sort of outturn we're looking at is around about 5 to 10 bottles every 3 months. So we should have another outturn around about sort of back into February, early March. I'll be getting in touch with Ben about that. Maybe we can sort something else out like this later in the year. You're not planning on having any festivals or anything like that, are you, Ben?
Well, never say never, mate. There's a couple of conversations that we've been having about doing like a drinks festival in Howden or something similar. So quite possibly, it's something that we definitely want to do. So it's yeah.
The beer shop still open in Howden, Ben?
Sorry, mate.
Is that beer shop still open?
Yeah.
Yep, Hop Cabin.
Yeah, Hop Cabin's still there. He's still going.
Good.
It's all right. I'm nearly there. I'm just trying to make sure I get the right ones. And
so yeah, any way we can support Ben. I'm tasked with looking after this in the north of England for at least the next 6 months. With a bit of luck, we'll be out and about seeing your lovely faces more in the way of festivals and in-person events as well. And it's just a case of seeing how it goes. I'm quite buoyed by some of your feedback. Thank you very much for letting me know what you think. Now, sometimes you can taste these in a bit of a bubble and worry that you're wrong, but thanks for all the positivity and the negativity, actually. That's how we learn things.
So that's the correct pricing. So $71.99 for the Dalio and the Man at Moor, $94.49 for the Glenallachie, $80.99 for the Mortlach, $103.49 with the Kalila. And I'll put that back up in a second. And then we've got, so some of you are already signed up for the next couple of tastings that I've got lined up. So 16th of February is a Valentine's Day celebration with my good friend Chris Corcoran, who, even though he got a teaching job and isn't doing treats chocolates full time, is doing events and odd bits and pieces. So I managed to get the last 3 years worth of the Four Roses limited edition barrel strength releases, of which the 2023 is their 135th anniversary bottling as well. So we've got the 5 small batch bottlings, so small batch select, and then the 21, 22, and the 2023 limited edition small batch barrel strength bottlings. I've sent Chris samples of those. He's making chocolates to pair with each one of them, and then is also going to make a jelly using the standard small batch. If you've done his tastings with it, you'll know how good the chocolates are. And this is going to be absolutely brilliant. We've also got Callum, who is one of the brand ambassadors for the distributor of Four Roses. So he's going to give us some background information. That's another online one. And then 8th of March is Stowning Danish whiskey, which are a selection of rye whiskies. So there's a rye, there's a Tawny and Ruby Port finished rye. El Clasico is sweet vermouth finish. Bastard is mezcal cask finish, and then Dirty Bastard, which is relatively new, is the mezcal cask finish, and then chocolate stout barrels. And then Chaos is what they call a triple malt, which is peated single malt and rye whiskey together. You get a free glass with that as well. That's another online one. That's just with yours truly. And then I am just looking at a date potentially to do Lockley. So it's probably going to be end of March with Lockley, the second crop of the harvest, fallow, sowing and ploughing. Because that's going to be coming out in the end of February, but also the UK exclusive single cask bottling, and then the brand new age statement 5-year-old, which is due out in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to put one of those on, and we'll have that as well. So date is TBC, but we're looking at potentially last weekend in March. But just keep an eye out for that.
Easter weekend, Ben?
Sorry, mate?
Is that not Easter weekend?
Oh, that might be. So it might have to be the week before. That's a good point, actually.
It's not Easter.
Not Easter Friday's on the 29th.
Right, okay. We might have to look at the week before then. That's good thinking.
That's a pretty first.
I mean, that would be a pretty bloody good Friday, though, wouldn't it? That'd be good fun.
Do it on the Thursday.
Good Thursday. Maundy Thursday.
Good Thursday.
So that is that. In fact, no, we will take a picture. I'm going to try and do a screen grab if I can. So if you've got a glass with something in it, this is my new laptop, so I need to see where the print screen button is. Oh, there it is. Right. Okay. So I'm going to do. I haven't got anything. We'll do that. What? All right, that might have worked. I don't know. I'm on Windows 11 now, and it seems to be an absolute nightmare.
Correct.
None of it makes sense.
That's your problem. Windows.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, no, it worked. Hey, there we go. Oh, you all look amazing as well. I don't even have to do another one, which is unusual. So, relatively quick one for us. Any questions for Lee or me? Any final thoughts? Anything like that? Favourites of the night?
Favourites, Ben?
Yeah. Should we do? Should we go through? Yeah, let's do what we normally do. So you can only put your hand up once. Of your. No, actually, no. Not put your hand up once. Put your hand up if you liked it, and we'll do a most popular. So if you like the Dal Ewan, put your hand up. 2, 3. Oh, I thought it would have been more than that. Okay, the Manickmore. Put your hand up if you like the Manickmore. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, the Glenallachie. Ooh, 2 hands don't count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Yeah, the Lowland. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's typical because that's the one that's out of stock. The Mortlach. Okay, this is a close one, this. And then the Kalila. Yeah, Claire's not going to end up. I didn't think she would do. Right. So, only just in first place was the Glenallachie with 10 hands raised out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's pretty damn good. And then the Manickmore had 9, and then tied for third was the Lowland and the Mortlach. So a very good spread and went down very well. I thought the Dal Ewan might have had a few more, but I think it sort of struggled a little bit as the starter. I don't know if anybody's going back to it and seeing what it's like now.
You can't taste it after you've drunk that.
You can't taste it because of the rest of them. Well, give it a go tomorrow. Yeah, I think it's really, really nice. So, like I say, I will be ordering it probably back end of next week. So that code will be available basically until like Wednesday, Thursday. So if you do want any of these bottles, don't delay getting them in. You'll be able to purchase them, and then I'll order them, and we'll go. And Connor has guaranteed me that stock's available. He
Remind
says.
me of the code, Ben, please.
Sorry, mate?
Remind me of the code. I missed it.
The code, Rare Find is the code.
Okay.
Let's put that back on. That one. Cha-ching. There you go. And that's the prices as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then, hopefully we'll see what else is coming out from them in the near future and maybe look at doing another one later on in the year.
Yeah, that sounds a good idea.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, already sounds like a plan then.
No, it's been a really good
Connor's
tasting.
guarantee.
Yeah. Ben, I just got one question. Where does the fingerprint come from on the rare find?
Oh, it's because Lee's got really big fingers.
I haven't actually. I've got really small hands. No, that is the fingerprint of Greg Urquhart, who is the guy who chose it. I always want to like send it to the police station and have them analyze it to see if he's telling the truth. There we go.
That was
so yeah, thanks everybody for taking part. Really good set of whiskies. Really impressive. And I'll be honest, sort of until Lee got in touch, it wasn't really one that I'd looked at. I'd kind of seen Whiskey Way around, and I like Wester, but it was just like it's another independent bottler, but it's doing really good job. So thanks Lee for bringing it to my attention. Thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
We got there in the end. Through the technical issues and the human errors and my inability to cut and paste a spreadsheet. But yeah, good to see everybody again. Some of you I know we'll see in the future for some of the other tastings. But thank you all for joining. Have a good weekend, and we shall see you very soon.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you later.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, pair of you, and thanks to the rest of you as well.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers now.
Cheers all.